Hey, this is Joel with WakeMAKERS. We're here today doing an installation on the Supra and Moomba boats, Gravity 3 ballast system upgrade. This upgrade will work on all 2002 to 2008 Supra and Moomba boats equipped with the factory Gravity 3 ballast system. This is going to be an intermediate to advanced installation, and it could take about 5 to 9 hours. Here's the tools you'll need for the installation. Alright, now that we have all the tools, we can get in the boat and start to remove factory components, such as the factory ballast bags, the factory manifold system, and the factory fill pump. We're going to start by removing the factory hoses from the bag by releasing these quick connects. Pull the hoses off, roll the bag up, pull it out. Now we're going to go to the factory manifold system, remove all of the hoses, and then we'll pull those out because we don't need the fill hose anymore. We also have a strainer here, and that is between the through-hole fitting and the manifold. We're going to remove the whole manifold starting at the bracket, then we're going to remove the strainer. We're going to leave the through-hole fittings there because we will use those for our upgrade here. We also need to disconnect the wiring to fully remove that manifold system. Just those, there will be 3 plugs like that. Disconnect from the pump down there. Now that we have the manifold out of the way, we can see the fill pump a little easier. This is actually going to be unscrewed right here from the ball valve. A little bit tricky, but just going to twist that. Now that we've removed the pump, it's no longer needed. Set that aside. After we remove that hose from the manifold, we're going to want to remove the fill hose completely. We won't need this hose any longer. Here we've located the drain pump for our rear locker. This is going to be on the engine side, as far back as you can go basically. We're going to want to remove the inlet side of the pump. We're going to remove that hose, remove the outlet hose, which is down below, and then completely remove the pump from the boat. From there, we'll move on to the next step. Pull the pump all the way out, disconnect the wire, and we no longer need that. Now that we have removed all the factory components needed, we're going to start by unboxing our new WakeMAKERS reversible pump. So we have the pump here. We need to start by installing these rubber grommets. This is going to be a shock absorber for the pump because these pumps run at have quite a bit of torque to them. So these are going to help keep them quiet as well as last a little longer. So you're just going to insert the grommet like that, and then there's a plastic piece which is then inserted. That's going to be a good solid connection for where you're going to put your screw through. There's also some washers included. These are semi-optional. So our hardware, we've chosen to use a stainless screw. We're going to be mounting this into a plastic panel. So we're going to put that through the washer. That'll then go through our hole, and then we can mount that to our panel. In this boat, there really isn't that much room to put the pumps. We have found a pretty suitable location back here. This is a very thick, high-density plastic panel, which has room on the backside, so we don't have to worry about screws poking through. This is where we're going to mount our pumps, 2 of our pumps. We're going to put one here and one right here. I've already traced it out and lined it out, pre-drilled some of the holes. We've selected to use some 1¼ number 10 stainless screws. These will fasten this nicely and keep them secure for a long time. Depending on where you're mounting in the boat, you may need to through bolt and actually put a nut on the backside. So it just depends on the panel This is what most of these Supra and Moomba boats are going to be a pretty suitable location. We're also going to put one up kind of near the V-drive, which we'll show you next. So anyway, here we are, just going to put these in, and alright, so in addition to those rear mount, we need one more mount here for our third pump. This is going to supply water to and from the center tank, or center bag. Since there wasn't any room back there, we're gonna mount it right here next to the V-drive, which the through-hole locations are going to be really close here as well. This is going to be a good spot. Got a good solid panel here. This would be your best orientation of the pump. However, you can mount it horizontal. So anywhere in this orientation there, and you'd be all set. Since your factory wiring isn't going to support the new pumps, this is actually the only part that we're going to reuse. Although we do want to disconnect it from the factory wiring, so we're going to unscrew this panel, and then we're going to want to disconnect the plug. Normally this would be connected to a harness in the boat. We've already disconnected that. We won't be reusing this or any of this wiring, so we're going to disconnect all of these from the back sides of these rocker switches. These are the only parts we will be reusing in this whole wiring system. So this is our plug and wake wiring. Everything is pre-terminated. There's no cutting or crimping needed. As you can see, there's plugs on each end of the wires. Those are going to be our extensions to the battery and pump. What we're going to start with is the battery terminal module. This is going to connect directly to our battery, and then we'll be able to start connecting the rest of our wiring. So obviously, or typically, you'll see red is positive, black is negative. If we keep that the same, that's going to be easier in the long run. So we're going to want to connect the positive lead to our accessory terminal on the positive battery, and then our negative on the negative. Just note that we want to keep from any harm or anything like that, so we're going to leave the fuse out until the very end. As you can see here, this is going to be our 20-foot battery harness. This is going to connect the battery to the switch. You'll have 3 of these wires or cables. They're going to run all the way around the bow and then back to the switch. So starting at the battery, we're going to connect these to that plug there. Then we're going to run all 3 up and around the bow. Okay, now that we've got our wiring all the way up to where our rocker switches go, we can utilize our pre-wired switch block module. This is going to be all ready to go. All we have to do is plug this right onto the back side of our switch. It actually only plugs in one direction. If you really want to look at it here, you can see how there's 7 of these slots filled, and then 1 empty one. Here's our empty spot, so when we flip this over, that'll connect in just like that. Push on there. It's pretty stiff, so you got to push pretty hard, and then it'll just click right on. So we're going to do that all 3 there, and then we've got our pump harness. That'll end up going that way back to the pumps, and then we've got our battery connection here. This is just going to plug right in to that. We're going to do that for all 3. Here we have our pump harness or pump extension wiring. These are going to connect into the back sides of these switches. If you notice, these plugs are a little different than the ones that were on the battery harness. That's so that you can physically not wire this incorrectly. It's always going to be correct. But from here, we're also going to want to see, we want our center, our left, and our front. I've gone ahead and labeled these, but let's see here. So we have our first one is our left. So we're going to plug in our left pump here. Second one is our center, or front is what Supra calls it. Here's our center front. And then here's our right harness. Plugging that right in. We can then stuff these wires back here behind the panel. And then screw this back in, and then on the back side, or down at the other end of the boat, we'll connect those wires to each pump and finish up our install with the wiring there. Alright, here we are at the back of the boat, finishing up the wiring for the pumps. We're going to finish this one up here with connecting our right pump wire to our pump here. Connecting that in, you can obviously clean this up by zip tying extra wire behind panels or up connected to other wiring harnesses. That's just going to help with eliminating any possibility for snagging and just making it look a lot cleaner. So zip tie that all up, and then your wiring is essentially done. Just going to connect or check for tight plug connections, and then lastly put your fuse in and test your pumps real quick. Don't let them run for more than 5 seconds without water going through them. It's best to do that. Keeps the impeller intact and everything. So just go ahead and get that done, and we'll move on to the next. Alright, so here we are under the boat. We've taped off the general area where we want to put this through-hole fitting. Then we used our location magnets. We have one on the inside, and then we've got one here. These are going to stick together. We've already done that and traced that out, placed our position for the through-hole fitting. So now that we have it located, we have the other one on the other side there, we can start the drilling process. You're going to want to refer to our how to drill a through-hole fitting video. That'll be linked in the video here, but that'll basically take you through all the steps of the process of drilling a hole in your boat. So we're just going to touch on that, and then we're going to get going to drilling. We've put a hole in the boat. Alrighty, so now that we have drilled our hole, we need to put a small bead of silicone on here as a sealant and adhesive there. So there is a little groove in there. We just need enough to fill that groove nicely. Don't need too much, otherwise it'll just all squeeze out and just be a big mess for us to clean up. So just a nice bead there. You put just a little bit on the inside of that if you want, but not real necessary. Cool, so that should be enough. Now that we're in the boat, we can install our bronze through-hole fitting, a bronze ball valve. I've gone ahead and already put on the plastic hose barb fitting, which threads onto the top. In our situation, this through-hole fitting is super close to the raw water intake. We're going to go ahead and remove the green handle, just so we can actually thread that on. Set that green handle aside. Now that we have that done, we can thread our fitting on. Sometimes it takes a second. Now that we have our ball valve and plastic hose barb fitting installed, we can just slip our hose clamp over the hose and press the hose onto the fitting. Alright, so this is was our factory drain hose that was connected to the pump. we've disconnected all of the fasteners that it was attached to there, and then run it back all the way to the through-hole fitting. We did not disconnect it from the through-hole fitting, still connected there. Now we're just going to determine our length that the hose needs to be able to reach the floor completely when the bag collapses, as well as come up and not have too much excess where the hose could get kinked or moved anywhere. So we're just going to determine that length. Grab our hose cutters or a knife of some sort. Could give it a little extra. You can always cut off more, but you can't really get much hose back. So going to give it a little extra here. Cut our hose. This is extra, we don't need that. And so now we have our hose clamp from where it was connected to the pump. We've also provided you a shrink wrap labeled vent overflow. That can be handy if you're ever taking your bags out. Sometimes you'll need heat to put this fitting in, but a lot of times it'll just snug or just slip right in there. So we want to make sure that lines up to where it'll connect to the top of the bag, go up and down. Slide our hose clamp over here to the fitting. Use our driver to tighten that down nice and snug. And then this is where we can clean it up. Push our shrink wrap over like that. And then we'll use our heat gun to carefully shrink that wrap over. Pay attention to the real small plastic connections here. You do not want to get your heat gun too close to that. So it's better to have your shrink wrap a little loose than overheat the fitting. And then we'll be able to insert that fitting onto our bag. It is good for 3/4 inch hose. Alright, now that we've got that one zone completed, hose is connected to the ball valve as well as the pump. We're going to repeat that step for the next two locations, so our other side and then our center tank. Obviously we won't have to install a ball valve or anything for the existing through-hole fitting. Just going to need to install the plastic hose barb fitting and then the hose and connect the bags, and we can move on to the next thing. Okay, so now that we have finished plumbing and everything, the last thing to do is connect your ballast bag. Here is our new vent line that we reused from our drain hose. That'll connect to a 3/4 inch quick connect fitting on the top of your bag. So we can slide that over, lock it down with that ring. And then at the very back of the bag, we have our fill drain connection. It's labeled in case you take the bag out or anything like that. That'll go right over that, lock down, and now you are all set to enjoy your new and improved ballast system.